The screech of metal legs against linoleum sliced through the staff room, sharp and jarring. Voices rose, tangled with the rhythmic hum of an ancient ceiling fan. "She hit my son." The accusation cracked the air like a whip. Emily Carter stood at the center of the room, her knuckles whitening as she fought to keep her hands still at her sides. Across from her, 3 parents formed a semicircle, their eyes burning with a mix of outrage and judgment. Behind one of them, a tall woman with a severe jawline and perfect blonde hair sat a boy, maybe 10, slouched in his chair like he wished the floor would swallow him. His left cheek was red and swollen. His eyes glistened but didn't meet Emily's. At the far end of the table, Principal McPherson set down a manila folder with a dull thud. His sigh was heavy, as if it carried the weight of both the school's reputation and Emily's career. "Emily," he began, his tone carefully neutral, "this is a serious accusation. Until we can investigate, I'll have to place you on temporary leave." The words stung, but it was the boy's glance, quick, almost involuntary, that caught Emily's attention. There was something there, guilt, fear. It flashed for less than a heartbeat before he looked away. Parents shifted, chairs scraped, and the meeting began to dissolve into movement. That's when it happened. A metallic clatter. The boy's backpack slipped from his shoulder, spilling its contents onto the floor. A bright blue pencil case bounced once, the zipper splitting open. Pens, erasers, and a tightly folded scrap of paper tumbled out. Emily's eyes locked on the paper. She bent to pick it up, but the boy's mother moved faster. She scooped up the case, stuffing everything back inside with brisk, sharp movements. The paper vanished into the dark nylon, hidden again, but Emily had seen it. Then, the fraction of a second before it disappeared, she caught the faint, uneven scrawl. "I'm sorry. It was an accident." Her pulse hammered. The cold was stubborn in late February, refusing to release its grip on the small Ohio town. Maplewood Elementary was a squat, red brick building that smelled faintly of pencil shavings and lemon cleaner. Emily Carter had taught here for nearly a decade, long enough to recognize the creak in the third step of the main stairwell and the way the radiators hissed. Just before the bell rang, her 5th grade classroom sat at the end of the hall, sunlight pooling through tall windows onto rows of worn desks. It wasn't perfect. Some desks wobbled, some chairs bore graffiti etched by restless hands, but it was hers. That Tuesday had started like any other. Emily greeted her students at the door, exchanging smiles, nods, and the occasional sleepy "Morning, Miss Carter." Tyler Matthews arrived last, his blonde hair tousled, his blue backpack dragging slightly on one strap. He offered her a polite but distracted smile before heading straight to his seat in the back row. The first half of the morning passed in a haze of multiplication drills and vocabulary exercises. Around 10:30, the students paired off for a group science project. Emily moved between tables, offering guidance, adjusting posters, answering questions about the assignment. Tyler and Jamie sat together by the window. Jamie was carefully gluing a diagram of the water cycle while Tyler tapped his mechanical pencil against the desk. Tap, tap, tap. The sound burrowed into Emily's concentration until she finally walked over. "Tyler, keep working, please," she said gently. He didn't stop. He just grinned and kept tapping. Emily opened her mouth to speak again. Thwack! The pencil slipped from his fingers, hit the edge of the desk, and snapped in half. Tyler jerked back in surprise. His chair tipped, and as he caught himself, his cheek collided hard with the side of the desk. The sharp corner left an instant mark, a flush of red spreading across his skin. "Oh!" Tyler cried, clutching his face. The classroom froze. Heads turned. Whispers fluttered like moths in the still air. "Miss Carter hit me." The words were out before Emily could even blink. Her breath caught in her throat. "Tyler, no, I didn't." "You," she stopped herself, her voice trembling. "You hit your cheek on the desk." But Tyler had turned away, holding his face as if sealing the accusation into the room. Jamie stared down at the table, glue still dripping from his brush. Emily scanned the faces of her students, some wide-eyed, some frowning, some already whispering to each other. She felt the shift in the room. It was subtle but real. The rest of the day passed under a cloud. Tyler kept quiet, occasionally pressing his fingers to his cheek as if to remind everyone of the injury. Emily tried to push through the lesson plans, but her voice felt like it was cutting through ice. By the final bell, she'd heard enough snippets of conversation to know the story had already taken shape. Miss Carter hit a student. The next morning, the frost clung stubbornly to the edges of Emily's windshield. She scraped it away with quick, practiced motions, but her thoughts were already inside the school, replaying yesterday in jagged fragments, the snap of Tyler's pencil, the cry, the accusation. Her stomach felt hollow as she parked in her usual spot behind the gym. The building loomed ahead, red brick, washed pale in the cold morning light. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of maple syrup and disinfectant. A few early students were hanging up coats, the chatter bouncing between lockers. Emily made her way to her classroom, coffee in one hand, her bag heavier than usual, with papers she hadn't touched last night. She was unlocking her door when she heard it. 2 parents stood just down the hall, coats still buttoned, voices low but urgent. Heard she lost her temper. I told you she seemed strict. Tyler's mother said his cheek was swollen all night. Emily's fingers froze on the lock. The whisper wasn't meant for her, but it wrapped around her like a cold chain. She pushed the door open and stepped inside without looking back. 8:10 a.m. drop-off tension by the time the morning bell was 20 minutes away. The parking lot was a river of minivans and SUVs. Emily stood near her door as her students trickled in, each one peeling away from a parent's goodbye. Tyler came halfway down the walkway with his mother. Mrs. Matthews was tall, with an ironed coat and hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to lift her eyebrows. She kept her hand on Tyler's shoulder, not gently, but not quite harshly either, just firm enough to guide him like a possession. "Good morning," Emily said, forcing her voice into warmth. Mrs. Matthews didn't return the greeting. She looked Emily in the eye, her expression neutral but cold, as if she were cataloging a defendant in court. Tyler kept his gaze fixed on the ground. "Tyler," Emily said softly, "we've got science work to finish today." He gave a small nod, still not looking at her, and stepped into the classroom. Mrs. Matthews lingered half a beat too long, her eyes narrowing just enough to make Emily's pulse tick faster. Then she turned and left without a word. First period. The weight of as Emily tried to teach like she always did, projecting calm. Moving around the room, checking on group work, but she could feel the shift. Some students avoided her gaze entirely. Others stared longer than usual, as if studying her for signs of danger. Halfway through math, Jamie, the boy who'd been Tyler's partner, raised his hand with a question. As she leaned over to help him, she caught Tyler glancing at them, then quickly looking away. His hand was inside his bright blue pencil case, fiddling with something. Emily's eyes tracked the motion. The zipper was half open, and she caught a glimpse of folded paper inside. Her chest tightened. Was this what Jamie had hinted at yesterday? Before she could think of a way to approach it, the bell rang. Lunchtime, the staff room freezingly didn't want to go to the staff room, but skipping it would invite questions. She stepped inside, carrying a salad she knew she wouldn't eat. 3 teachers were huddled near the coffee machine. Their conversation halted mid-sentence. Smiles appeared too quick, too polite. "Hey, Emily," one of them said, but the warmth was absent. She nodded, sat, and opened her container. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between them. From the corner of her eye, she saw one teacher lean toward another, whispering. It wasn't paranoia. She knew the look. She'd seen it before, in the schoolyard students passing a rumor like a baton. Now it was her turn to be the subject. Afternoon, the first break in the walrus's duty meant standing outside in the brittle cold, watching kids scatter across the playground. Emily zipped her coat to her chin and scanned for Tyler. He stood near the fence with Jamie, kicking at a patch of ice. When Jamie noticed her watching, he hesitated, then walked over. "Miss Carter," he said quietly. Tyler didn't want to say you hit him. "I saw him write something and put it in his pencil case." Emily's breath caught. When yesterday, before he went home, he was sitting at his desk, writing fast. Then he folded it up and put it inside. Jamie glanced over his shoulder. He looked scared. Before she could ask more, the whistle blew to signal the end of recess. After school, the almost opportunity, the halls emptied slowly, footsteps echoing against the tile. Emily stayed behind, tidying desks, waiting for the right moment. Tyler's desk was near the back, next to the window. She moved casually toward it, as if adjusting chairs. The pencil case sat there, zipper still half open. Her fingers hovered. She could just take it, read the note, and return it before anyone noticed. But the sound of heels clicking down the hall froze her in place. Mrs. Matthews appeared in the doorway, looking for something. Emily forced a smile, just making sure everyone took their homework. Mrs. Matthews stepped inside, picked up the pencil case, and dropped it into Tyler's backpack. She zipped it closed with a final, decisive motion. "I'll be picking him up directly from now on," she said, "to make sure nothing else happens." Emily swallowed the retort, burning on her tongue, of course. Mrs. Matthews turned and left, her heels echoing until they faded entirely. Emily sank into a chair. The note was real, she could feel it, but getting to it now would require timing, luck, and a reason no one could dispute. Evening. The plan forms that night. Emily sat at her kitchen table, the clock ticking, toward midnight. A pile of grating lay untouched beside her. She kept seeing the blue pencil case, the folded paper, Jamie's anxious face. If the note said what she suspected, it could clear her name instantly. But more than that, it could reveal why Tyler had lied in the first place. And Emily had the sinking feeling the truth might be worse than the accusation. Her eyes drifted to the calendar on the wall. Tomorrow was Friday. Fewer classes in the afternoon. More hallway chaos during dismissal. If she was careful, she could find a moment when Tyler's backpack was unattended. Long enough to get the note. Long enough to finally know. Friday morning brought a restless energy to Maplewood Elementary. The hallways were louder, the footsteps quicker, and the air carried that faint undercurrent of anticipation for the weekend. Emily walked in earlier than usual. clutching her coffee. Like a talisman, the plan from the night before still pulsed in her head. Find the note. But there was no guarantee she'd get the opportunity, and she knew she couldn't risk being caught rifling through a student's belongings again. Not after the tense encounter with Mrs. Matthews, she told herself she'd watch and wait. Patience, she thought, would be her ally today. Morning lessons. The watchful eye first period passed with Emily's mind, half in the room and half on Tyler's desk. She noted every time his hand reached for the pencil case. He handled it almost protectively, unzipping it only enough to slip a pen in or out. Jamie, sitting across from him, kept sneaking glances toward her, his eyes carrying something between encouragement and worry. Emily gave him the smallest nod, a silent promise. I haven't given up. By mid-morning, the tension coiled tighter. Every opportunity to approach Tyler's desk was blocked either by students milling about, or by Tyler himself staying glued to his seat. The bell rang for lunch, and Emily exhaled slowly. Maybe after recess. Maybe then. The accident had happened when she least expected it. The class had just returned from the playground, cheeks flushed from the cold air, boots squeaking on the linoleum. Tyler was halfway to his seat when another student brushed past him too quickly. His backpack strap slipped from his shoulder, and the whole thing tumbled to the floor with a thud. Books and papers fanned out across the aisle. The bright blue pencil case shot forward, sliding across the floor until it landed against Emily's foot. Tyler froze for half a second, just long enough for Emily to act. She bent down, scooping up the pencil case in a stack of worksheets in one smooth motion. Her thumb pressed lightly against the zipper, feeling the faint bulge of something folded inside. Careful, Tyler, she said, handing him the stack of papers with one hand, and palming the folded note with the other. It slid into her sleeve like it had always belonged there. Tyler muttered a thanks, his voice barely above a whisper, before stuffing the pencil case back into his bag. The first glance, Emily waited until the students were busy unpacking their math folders before retreating to her desk. She opened a drawer and let her body shield the movement as she slipped the paper free. It was worn from folding, edges soft, the pencil marks faint but legible. She hesitated, knowing whatever was written here would change everything, then unfolded it. Her eyes traced the words, slow at first, then faster. I'm sorry. The bruises from when I fell at home. Mom told me to say it was you. Emily's throat tightened. She read it again, her pulse pounding in her ears. The letters were uneven, the handwriting unmistakably a child's. There was no mistaking the meaning. Relief washed over her. This was proof. This was her name cleared. But the relief was tangled with something heavier. The note didn't just exonerate her, it exposed Tyler. The bruise had been from home, and if Mrs. Matthews had told him to lie, Emily's grip on the paper tightened. She pictured the firm hand on his shoulder at drop-off, the way his eyes never seemed to meet hers anymore. The ethical weight by the last bell. The note burned in her pocket like a live ember. She stayed in her classroom as students filtered out, pretending to stack papers until she was alone. She read the note a third time, then placed it flat on her desk. Reporting it to the principal was the logical choice. It would end the investigation against her immediately, but it would also mean Tyler would be questioned, possibly pulled into a larger inquiry that might make his life harder, or even unsafe. Emily had been a teacher long enough to know what fall at home could mean, and if Mrs. Matthews was willing to use her own child to destroy a teacher's career, what else might she be capable of? She stared out the window as the buses pulled away, a line of yellow shrinking into the gray distance. A decision forms. The quiet after dismissal was different, today denser, more suffocating. Emily slid the note into a small envelope from her desk drawer, sealing it without writing a name. She tucked the envelope into her bag. She needed advice, someone who understood both the law and the fragility of a child in this kind of situation. Her mind landed on one person, Rachel Torres, an old college friend who'd gone into child advocacy work. If Rachel said to take it straight to the principal, she would. But Emily suspected Rachel might suggest something more discreet, at least at first. She picked up her phone, started to dial, then stopped. It was too sensitive to discuss over the line. She'd have to meet her in person. Evening shadows that night. Emily sat at her kitchen table with the note spread before her. Her apartment felt colder than usual, shadows stretching long across the floor. She thought of Tyler's small voice, the way he had seemed smaller these last few days, his shoulders pulled inward. Her tea went cold again. She didn't notice. The knock at her door startled her so much that her chair scraped loudly against the floor. She wasn't expecting anyone peering through the peephole. She saw no one, just the dim hallway light flickering overhead. When she opened the door, there was only a single envelope on the floor. No name, no return address. Inside was a single line typed, "Leave it alone." Her breath caught. Someone new. Emily stared at the typed line in the envelope until the letters seemed to blur. Leave it alone. Her apartment felt suddenly smaller, the shadows thicker. She glanced toward the window, the street beyond swallowed in late winter darkness. It could have been anyone, someone in the building, someone waiting in the hall, someone who had followed her home. She shut the door quietly and leaned against it, her heartbeat drumming in her ears. It wasn't just a warning, it was proof. Someone knew she had the note, and that meant someone had been watching her very closely. The meeting planned that night. She texted Rachel. Need to talk in person? Urgent. Not on the phone. The reply came quickly. Tomorrow morning, 2 a.m., at Griffin's Cafe. Emily slept little, her mind running loops of possibilities. If Mrs. Matthews was behind this, she had resources or at least connections. Enough to spread a rumor that had half the parents at school whispering in less than 2 days. By dawn, Emily had made up her mind. She'd give Rachel the note, explain everything, and follow her lead. She wasn't going to play detective alone, not when a child's safety might be at stake. The shadow in the parking lot. She left for the cafe early, her bag zipped shut, the envelope inside. The air was brittle, breath clouding in front of her face as she crossed the parking lot behind her building. Halfway to her car, she caught the glint of light off a windshield 2 rows away. A sedan idled there, engine running, windows tinted, dark enough to hide the driver. She slowed, keys tight in her hand. The car didn't move, but she felt its presence like a weight. She slid into her own vehicle, locked the doors, and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, the sedan was still there. She pulled out of the lot. The sedan followed. Griffin's Cafe, a false Comtha, cafe's warm air, hit her like a wave. As she stepped inside, she spotted Rachel immediately, waving from a corner booth. She looked the same, short, dark hair, bright eyes, still wearing those oversized sweaters that seemed to swallow her. But as Emily slid into the booth, Rachel's smile faded. You look like you haven't slept. Emily pulled the envelope from her bag, placing it between them. I got this yesterday, she said, voice low. Rachel opened it, reading the note from Tyler first, then the typed warning. Her jaw tightened. This isn't just about clearing your name, she said. This is intimidation. And if it's coming from his mother, there's probably a reason she doesn't want anyone asking questions. I thought maybe it was just about her being angry, protecting her pride, Emily said, but now I'm not sure it's that simple. Rachel nodded slowly. It's not, and you need to be careful. If you take this to the principal, it could trigger a mandatory report. That means Child Protective Services, police, interviews. If there's abuse, it's dangerous for Tyler. So what do I do? Emily asked. Rachel leaned forward. You let me handle it quietly. I know people who can check into her background without raising alarms. But Emily, until we know more, keep this between us. No one else, not even your closest colleagues. Emily agreed, but as she glanced out the window, her stomach clenched. Parked across the street was the same dark sedan from earlier. Back at school, the shift in the air. By the time Emily returned to Maplewood, the first recess was ending. Students streamed back into the building, cheeks red from the cold. She walked through the hallway, conscious of eyes following her, some curious, some guarded. Her classroom felt colder than usual. As she set her bag down, she noticed something odd. Her desk drawer was slightly open. She always locked it. The envelope with Tyler's note wasn't there. It was with Rachel now. But the idea that someone had tried to get into her desk made her skin crawl. She checked the lock. No sign of force, but the keyhole smelled faintly of metal oil, like it had been tampered with. The second warning at dismissal. Emily was standing near the door as students filed out. Tyler passed without looking up, Mrs. Matthews close behind. As they reached the hallway, Mrs. Matthews glanced over her shoulder. Their eyes met for less than a second, but the expression was unmistakable, a slow, knowing smile that didn't touch her eyes. When Emily returned to her desk, there was something new sitting on top of her gradebook. Another envelope. This one contained no typed message, just a single photograph. It was of her apartment building, taken from across the street. Emily's hands trembled. Whoever was behind this wanted her to know she was being watched everywhere. Homeschool, even at the cafe. Calling Rachel that evening, Emily called Rachel from her bathroom, the shower. Running to muffle her voice, they broke into my desk, she whispered, and I just got another envelope. A photo of my apartment. Rachel's tone sharpened. Okay, this changes things. I'm moving faster. I'll have something for you by Monday, but Emily, don't go anywhere alone after dark. And keep the note's existence quiet. If they think you still have it, you're in more danger than you realize. Emily wanted to argue, to say she could handle herself. But the truth was, her hands were still shaking from the moment she saw that photograph. The weekend ahead, by Friday night. Emily's apartment felt like a cage. Every creak in the walls made her glance toward the door. She double-checked the locks, pulled the blinds tight, and tried to distract herself with lesson planning she couldn't focus on. She thought about Tyler, if he was safe tonight, if he even knew the extent of what his mother was doing. And then she thought about Rachel's words. It's not that simple. Her phone buzzed with a new text. Unknown number. Next time it won't just be a picture. She didn't reply. She just set the phone down slowly and stared at it until the screen went black. Monday morning carried a weight Emily could feel before she even stepped out of bed. The weekend had been a blur of pacing, checking locks, and replaying every shadow outside her window. She hadn't told anyone at school about the threat. Yet, Rachel's promise to bring something concrete. Today had been the only thread keeping her from unraveling completely. The meeting. Rachel arrived just after first period. She slipped into Emily's classroom during her prep hour, closing the door behind her. Her face was pale, but her eyes carried a determined glint. I dug into her past. Rachel began without preamble. Mrs. Matthews isn't just some overbearing parent. She has a history of restraining orders, sealed court cases, all tied to custody disputes with her ex. The pattern is ugly. Allegations of emotional abuse, possible neglect, but she's never been convicted. Every time, she manages to make the other party look like the aggressor. Emily's chest tightened. So Tyler might be in real danger, Rachel finished. And if she's willing to manipulate him into lying about you, imagine what else she's capable of. Emily thought of the note in Rachel's possession, of Tyler's hunched shoulders and downcast eyes. It all clicked into place. This wasn't just about her career anymore. It was about getting Tyler out of harm's way. Rachel leaned in, lowering her voice further. I think she's connected to people who help her bury problems. Maybe family, maybe less legal means, which means we need to be careful about how we move forward. Emily nodded slowly. Careful had become her new reality. But before she could ask Rachel her next step, a sound broke through the air. Thought the siren zit started faint, 2 quick bursts, then the rising wail of sirens drawing closer. Both women turned toward the window. A black and white police cruiser shot past, lights flashing, followed by another. They stopped at the school's main entrance. Within seconds, the intercom crackled. Lockdown. This is not a drill. Teachers, secure your classrooms immediately. Emily's heart leaped into her throat. She moved to lock the door, pulling down the blinds in one swift motion. Rachel stepped toward the corner of the room, her expression tight. What the hell is going on? Emily whispered. Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her eyes widened. It's not a drill for me either. Emily's skin prickled. What do you mean? Rachel pocketed the phone. I've been followed since I left my office this morning. The same dark sedan you saw last week. It was parked outside my building. I think whoever's been watching you is expanding the circle. The lockdown hour for the next 40 minutes, the school was silent except for the occasional muffled footstep in the hallway. Emily sat at her desk. Rachel perched on the edge, both listening for clues. Through the blinds, Emily could make out the flash of a third police car arriving. 2 officers escorted someone out, a man she didn't recognize, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. His hands were cuffed. Rachel frowned. Doesn't look like Mrs. Matthews' type, but her voice trailed off, replaced by that look she got when pieces were starting to click together. When the lockdown lifted, Principal McPherson, his voice came over the intercom again. All clear, please resume your normal schedules. But normal was a word Emily wasn't sure applied anymore. Rachel's theory as the hallways returned to their usual hum. Rachel leaned close. If the police are here for someone unrelated, we might be in luck. Distraction works both ways. If we move now, we could get Tyler somewhere safe without Mrs. Matthews noticing, at least temporarily. Emily's mind flashed to Tyler's wide, guarded eyes. And how exactly do we do that? I have a contact at Child Protective Services, Rachel said, off the books. If we can arrange a meeting with Tyler during school hours, CPS can intervene without her permission. Emily hesitated, but we'd need his cooperation. If he's too scared, Rachel cut her off. That's where you come in. He trusts you more than anyone here. Emily's pulse quickened. She could picture the conversation already quiet, careful, giving Tyler the space to tell his truth. But she also knew that if Mrs. Matthews caught even a whiff of it, she'd double down. The interruption before they could plan further. The classroom door opened without a knock. Mrs. Matthews stood in the doorway, her smile polite but her eyes sharp. Miss Carter, she said smoothly, I just wanted to let you know Tyler won't be at school tomorrow. Family matters. Emily's gut twisted. Was this coincidence, or had she already sensed something was coming? Of course, Emily managed. I hope everything's all right. Mrs. Matthews tilted her head, studying her. Oh, everything's fine. I just like to keep a close eye on my son, you understand? The words were honey over glass shards. And then she was gone. Rachel's jaw tightened. She's moving him. She knows something. The race against the clock the rest of the day blurred into a countdown. Emily taught mechanically, her mind fixed on the ticking minutes. Every time she passed Tyler's desk, she caught herself searching his face for a signal, a sign that he wanted help. When the final bell rang, Rachel caught her arm. We have tonight to figure out our play. If she's pulling him from school, it could be our last chance before she disappears for a while. Emily nodded, determination settling into her bones. Then we don't waste a minute. Evening resolved. Back at her apartment, Emily found herself pacing again. She opened her blinds just enough to see the street. The dark sedan wasn't there, but the absence didn't comfort her. It felt like the silence before a storm. Her phone lit up with a text from Rachel. Meet me at my office at 7. I have a plan. Emily grabbed her coat. the weight of the decision ahead pressing on her shoulders. This wasn't just about protecting Tyler anymore. It was about outmaneuvering someone who'd already proven she was willing to use threats, lies, and intimidation to keep control. She locked her door, double-checking the knob. As she walked down the hall, she didn't notice the security camera above her door had a new red light blinking. The cold air slapped Emily's cheeks as she stepped onto the street. Her breath formed brief pale clouds in the glow of the street lamps. It was just after 6:40 p.m., and the world had that in-between stillness, too early for the last commuters, too late for the dinner crowd. She walked briskly toward her car, glancing once over her shoulder. No dark sedan, no idling engine. For the first time in days, she felt alone in that, strangely, didn't comfort her. She'd learned that when the threat wasn't visible, it was just hiding somewhere she couldn't see. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, almost ready. Lock the door behind you when you get here. Emily typed back. On my way, the empty street that drive to Rachel's office took her through quieter neighborhoods. Their porches strung with leftover Christmas lights. Now dulled and forgotten, she kept checking her mirrors. No sedan, no tail. Still, she couldn't shake the prickling at the back of her neck. When she arrived, the building's parking lot was nearly empty. Rachel's car was there, along with one other, a silver SUV she didn't recognize. Its windows were tinted, but the engine was off, and frost clung to the windshield. Whoever drove it hadn't been there long. Emily parked 2 spaces over, cutting her headlights before getting out. Inside, the officer's office was on the 2nd floor, past a creaky stairwell and a row of darkened doors. The lights in her window were on. Emily took the steps 2 at a time, eager to be inside. She knocked lightly. The door opened a moment later, not to Rachel, but to a man she'd never seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark wool coat. His hair was peppered with gray, and he carried himself with a stillness that felt deliberate. You must be Emily, he said, his voice low and even. Rachel stepped out to take a call. She asked me to wait for you. Emily froze. Who are you? My name's Daniel Price. I work with Rachel on certain, sensitive matters. She thought I should brief you while she's outside. Her instinct screamed to back away, but something about his tone, professional, kept her rooted. The offer. Daniel closed the door behind her, gesturing to a chair. I know about Mrs. Matthews. I know about the note. And I know you've been followed. Emily didn't sit. And how exactly do you know that? I've been following the people who've been following you, he said simply. Rachel called me in last week. Thought you could use a little extra protection. Emily's eyes narrowed. You're telling me she didn't mention you because what? She didn't want me to panic. Or because she didn't want to spook whoever's watching you, he replied. They're careful, but not perfect. They've made mistakes. That's how I know they're planning something. Soon. Her pulse quickened. Planning what? Daniel hesitated. I think they're going to remove Tyler from the picture. Permanently. And I don't mean moving him to another school. The words landed like a cold blade. Rachel returns. The door opened suddenly, and Rachel stepped in, phone still in hand. Her eyes flicked from Daniel to Emily. I see you two have met, she said. Emily crossed her arms. Without my knowledge. Rachel exhaled. I was going to tell you tonight. Daniel's ex-law enforcement. He's been keeping tabs on Mrs. Matthews and her network. Network, Emily repeated. Rachel nodded grimly. We think she's connected to people who've done this before, assimilated a child, made them vanish before authorities could intervene. Emily's mind flashed to Tyler's face, the way he avoided her gaze, the way his small hands clutched his pencil case. If what Rachel and Daniel were saying was true, she didn't have days. She had hours. The dilemma. Daniel leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. You've got 2 options. Go to the police now with the note. Hope they act fast enough to stop her, or let me handle this off the record. It'll be cleaner, faster, but not exactly by the book. Emily looked between them. You're asking me to trust someone I met 5 minutes ago to do something potentially illegal. I'm asking you, Daniel said evenly, if you'd rather risk bureaucracy moving too slow. The room felt suddenly smaller. The hum of the office's old radiator was the only sound for a long moment. The knock at the door, sharp, deliberate, knock, broke the silence. All 3 froze. Daniel's eyes went to the door, his hand sliding inside his coat. Rachel stepped toward it cautiously. Who is it? No answer. Just another knock. This one slower, heavier. Daniel gestured for her to step back. He opened the door just enough to peer out, then shut it quickly. They're here, he said. Emily's stomach dropped. Who? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he moved to the window, pulling the blinds aside a fraction. 2 men, both wearing plain clothes. I've seen them before, outside your apartment, Emily. The choice. Rachel's voice was urgent. We can't stay here. If they're here for you, they won't care about witnesses. Daniel looked at Emily. If we move now, I can get you out the back and to my car. We go straight to Tyler. No detours. Emily's breath came fast. And if I say no, then you walk out that door and hope the police get to him before Mrs. Matthews does. Daniel said, your call. The hum in Emily's ears grew louder. Every instinct told her to choose the safer path, to let the authorities handle it. But she'd seen the slow churn of official channels before. And if they were right about the timeline, she grabbed her coat. Let's go. The escaped Daniel led the way, moving quickly but silently down the hall. Rachel followed, checking over her shoulder. They slipped out a side stairwell, the cold air slapping them again as they emerged into the alley. A black SUV waited, engine running. Daniel opened the back door for Emily, scanning the street before climbing in after her. As they pulled away, she saw them two men standing outside Rachel's office, watching the car disappear. One lifted a phone to his ear.